Hi guys, just a quick disclaimer about this video, because this mod, and therefore this video, is a little bit different than all the rest. This mod is something that really needs to be experienced, and it's best if you know as little about the substance beforehand in order not to spoil that experience. Therefore, I made sure the video would show as little about the mod as possible, as the experience is told through narration and sound. So, while you might not really get this mod from watching this video, that was kind of the intention, and I just wanted you to have that frame of mind while watching it. Anyway, enjoy. Здравствуйте, товарищи, and welcome to our 23rd day of our month of mods, and today, looking at another source mod. But this mod is not really like any other source mod I've ever played. In fact, it's not really like any other game I've ever played, and I don't really know how I'm going to describe it in this video, but it was just so quirky and so unique and so interesting that I had to put it on this list. Today we're talking about the rather bizarre and surreal mod, the Stanley Parable. So, the best way I can describe this mod is it's some kind of commentary on what it's like to be a video game character. I don't want to reveal too much about the actual story or content of the mod because I'll give it away. But there's clearly a philosophical message operating within this mod, and I'm going to do my best to try and parse it out. So only the briefest look at its story. You play as an employee named Stanley, who works at a boring and mundane job where all that he does is has to input numbers which appear to him on a screen. But then one day, his instructions don't come, and there's no numbers to push, and poor Stanley has no idea what to do, and thus begins the Stanley Parable. It's almost as within this moment, Stanley actually becomes a sentient human being, rather than an avatar to be controlled by us, but he still realizes that he's an avatar to be controlled by us. And I think this point is fascinating, because it reveals a strange paradox within a lot of video game characters. The fact that more and more these characters are trying to become or act like human beings. We are seeing the development of more and more three-dimensional video game characters who we see evolve and change over the time span of the game we're playing or multiple games within an installment. But the more human these characters become, also more clearly to us reveals the fact that they are not human, and they never will be human. What I am talking about is that these characters are merely elaborate robots or playthings for our control and amusement. It used to be that characters in video games were simply avatars which we could project our existence onto, and therefore their agency never came into any kind of question. However, when you have a character like Nathan Drake who seems to have these human emotions, we get this kind of contrast that exists between our agency and his perceived agency. And this contrast allows us to bring this conflict to the fore. And through this conflict, we realize how meaningless and how useless the agency of a character like Nathan Drake is. Because despite everything, he has zero control over his life and his actions. All that control lies with us. And this is something that doesn't come up in other types of mediums, because there is no direct interaction between the reality of our reality and the reality of this other world. And without that interaction, there is no contrast. And without that contrast, there is no conflict. And without that conflict, there is no paradox. A paradox which is so wonderfully illuminated by the Stanley Parable. I guess you could sum up my discourse by asking the question, what if Nathan Drake realized he wasn't actually a human, and he realized that he was a character in a video game? In which case, I think his situation can be summed up rather nicely by a quote from Agent Smith, when he said, "We're not here because we're free. We're here because we're not free." But honestly, I think there's another layer to this, because the conflict between us and the video game character can be taken up another level and used as an allegory to illuminate another conflict which might exist, which is a conflict between us and the people who made the video game. Because does not the same rules apply? Perhaps we don't have any agency. Perhaps we are actually the ones being controlled by the people who made the video game. And just as much as we are pushing Nathan Drake's buttons, the creators of the game are pushing our buttons. And perhaps more than just extrapolating from us our money and our time, but our very agency and will as human beings. Though, unlike Nathan Drake, we do have the will and agency to shut it off at any point. But of course you can take that argument and flip it on its head and say just as much as the makers are controlling the players are controlling the makers. And make a strong and compelling argument that the relationship isn't one where one party imposes its agency upon the other, but rather that the relationship is a symbiotic one where both parties feed off and grow from the agencies of each other. But I gotta stop this now, or I'm gonna get lost within the conflicts of my own mind, and never able to drag myself out and actually finish this recording. But I enjoyed the mod. It was unique, it was quirky, it was funny, but most importantly, it made me reflect on what it had to say. And I think it might be the only mod on this list that has actually gotten me to do that. So, if you want to see just what the hell I'm talking about, then I recommend you check out the Stanley Parable. Anyway, I've got some more important contemplating that I need to get to. So, I'm going to sign off for now, and this has been Joseph Vizronov Stalin, saying I hope you join us tomorrow for another fantastic mod, and until then, you guys take care.